Good morning and welcome to Lone Star Saturday on this very warm Saturday morning in September, the first Saturday in September. And we welcome you to John Lester's Insure One studio right here in San Antonio. I'm Gary DeLaune. Blanquita's ailing today. And John, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Glad to be here.
Well, we want to say this first. Today, two big football games, the Aggies and Clemson, and later tonight, LSU and Texas, and it's going to be a very fine football afternoon.
Why can't it be Texas and A&M and LSU and the Crimson? It's just not the way it is, huh?
Well, not today. It'll
Yeah.
get that way later.
Yeah.
But we welcome you, and of course, so much has happened this past week. The memorial for Mayor Lila Cockrell, who served as mayor twice in the city, was a wonderful lady and died at age 97. And a great friend of mine, Jim Lavelle, with whom we visited 2 weeks ago yesterday. John and Rick Griffin and I all visited Dallas, and we celebrated his 99th birthday. And I said, Jim, I'll see you next year on your 100th. And he went to Colorado and had a fall at his daughter's home and went to surgery. The hip was corrected, the injury, but because of the anesthesia, they say, he couldn't overcome the aftermath, and he passed away, and his funeral is today in Dallas. So we're going to talk about Jim in just a few moments, but this is a very big birthday day today. First off, a young man from Lubbock, Texas, was born in the state.
Buddy Holly.
Buddy Holly. In 1936, Charles Hardin Holly.
Wow.
And he died February 13th, 1959, when they say the day the music stopped, when he died in a plane crash with the Big Bopper, and also with Richie Valens. And so it's a big day in music. And also there's some other birthdays I want to mention. I always like to do this. I go back into history. Not too many people would know who this woman was. Grandma Moses was born in the state in 1860. Anna Mary Robertson Moses. J.J. Morgan, a financier, was born in 1867. And a man that I knew not well, but I knew him in Houston, I received a telegram on the day my son was born. Shannon was born in Methodist Hospital, and I received a telegram from Dr. Michael DeBakey congratulating me on the birth of our son. He was born in the state in 1908. That's hard to believe, isn't it?
Wow.
One of the great heart surgeons of the world. He and Denton Cooley were involved in what they called the heart transplant capital of the world. And do you know who did the very first one in the world, though?
No.
South Africa.
Okay.
Yeah.
South
Bernard.
Africa did it, or someone in South Africa?
Dr. Christian Bernard was the first.
Okay.
And then, of course, Sir Anthony Quayle, the actor, born in the state in 1913. Great woman golfer Louise Suggs. I interviewed her a couple of times on the women's circuit in 1923. And Al McGuire, the great basketball coach, born in 1928. And there were some others too. Richard Roundtree, the actor. And I want to say that you are a great baseball fan. By the way, the Astros won again.
They won.
And Bregman, I think, was the star this time. And today, guess who's pitching?
I'm going to guess Verlander.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I hadn't looked, but I figured it was Verlander.
And my son Shannon and grandson Mason are going over to see the game today.
Are they?
And they're going with the Young Life group out of Bernie, and that's going to be a great day for them. It was on this date in 1986, Dan Marino, the Miami Dolphins, threw his 100th career touchdown pass in only his 44th NFL game. That was the earliest of any quarterback throwing that many passes in that short of time.
I'm sure that's been surpassed by now.
And then 1998, Mark McGwire set a new Major League Baseball record for most home runs hit in a single season. The previous record was 61, of course, set by Roger Maris in 1961. And do you know who holds the all-time record?
Well, it's
Hamron Hank Aaron.
No, that's been broken.
Well, he had 714 at the time.
Yeah, but now it's Sonny Sosa, isn't it?
Sammy Sosa? No, he didn't break it. No.
I thought he and Mark McGwire broke it at the same time.
Mark McGwire was caught, he said it in a Major League season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then Barry Bonds of the Giants became only the 5th player in Major League Baseball history of the state to hit 60 home runs in a season. And, of course, he and Mark McGwire were both involved in the substance scandal.
Right.
And that hurt their careers. But we have so much to talk about. Of course, last night, while we did the football game at historic Alamo Stadium, the Lee Volunteers had lost 19 in a row until last night.
Are they still calling them Lee Volunteers?
Yes. Well, I called them Robert E. Lee Volunteers because I'm still ticked off that they changed
Well,
the
no,
name.
the name changed. So
Yes. It's called now the Lee. It's the Legend of Academic or Educational Excellence, LEE, which doesn't mean a thing to me, but Robert E. Lee does.
Okay.
So anyway, they won the game 30-27 on a field goal last night, snapping a 19-game losing streak for Danny Closa.
Really?
And Willie Hall is the coach of Brackenridge. They had, of course, defeated Lee last year, and they beat Somerset last week in their season opener. But Willie Hall is 63 years old, still coaching, still going strong.
Wow.
And he has coached so many great football players. He and Danny Closer are just two class acts. They are both outstanding coaches and great leaders of young men.
So the other team that played Lee did show up. It
Right.
wasn't a forfeit. By forfeit, they won and snapped their record. They actually played a game.
Brackenridge won last year, and last night they had a lead. It was 25-7 at halftime.
Okay.
And then Lee came back to win. And but what a great...
He didn't get it. But
Yeah, I'm trying to forget it. But it's just been a very busy first week in September. A lot going on.
Very busy.
There's one story I do want to mention in football. Last week there was a team from Dayton. I think it was. I'm not sure the name of the high school. It's incidental in Texas, but it was 25-7 was the score at the half, and one of the young men from Dayton was upset with a call, took off his helmet, ran over, attacked the referee, and butted him with his head. They called the game off. They're going to investigate. That school has been in trouble before. And so, that's a shame when that happens. There's a lack of control and leadership somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, that gentleman should have been pulled, and
Well, he was ejected, and
I
he
don't
may
know
not
if the
play
game.
anymore.
I don't know if the game should have been called, but
They called it at halftime.
Did they?
Yeah.
Well,
But they're going to investigate, and that young man's career may be over in high school, which is a shame because I'm sure that he has had lack of guidance somewhere in his career. Now, we know that so much has gone on, and of course, the politics of the world continue to interfere and blemish our headlines. But as we said last week, you and Rick and I visited Jim Lavelle in Garland.
Right.
And we've kind of dedicated this show to him today. Of course, we all remember that fateful day, November 22nd of 1963. And this was the headline in the paper that next morning. John F. Kennedy and John Connally were both shot. Of course, Mr. Kennedy died at Parkland Hospital. And these are pictures that we have. We have Jim Lavelle and I in about 5 or 6 years ago. I'm not sure of the exact date. There was a company, a Hollywood producer. The company was called, I can't remember the name of the movie company, but they asked, Robert Erickson was a producer. He asked me to come to Dallas, and they flew in several people. And we recreated the assassination of Lee Harvey Oswald.
Right.
And we were in the basement that day, and so you see some pictures here. And the young man that you see there with his wife is Bob Jackson. And he's the photographer that took the picture of Ruby killing Oswald. It was one of those instantaneous snapshots that every photographer gives his career for,
Yeah, he won a Pulitzer Prize for that.
and
didn't he?
$10,000.
Right. Wow.
And Jim and I are sitting next to the '59 Ford Galaxy, which was similar to the car that they were going to escort or transport Oswald to the county jail on that November 24th. That was a Sunday. And, of course, you remember the assassination. Well, I can say that it's not very well taught today. But this was the other person shot that afternoon in Dallas. His name was J.D. Tippett. And we also had the privilege
of meeting his wife.
of meeting, well, I
Miss
had met her
Tippett.
before, Marie Tippett. She was a young widow on that day when Oswald shot J.D. Tippett as he was fleeing to the Texas Theater area. And, of course, he was arrested in the Texas Theater. And you and I had the honor of being there last November.
Yeah, we went there a year
Last
ago, 2 years
November.
ago. Last
No,
November.
last November.
Wow. Seems longer than that. But
Hugh Ainsworth was there.
yeah.
And that's when you got to meet Jim the first time.
Actually, that was the second time I got to meet him. But I got to meet him about a year or two before when you and I went up there.
Well, we went up there and we ate at a Mexican restaurant in Ghana. And
We
had a
had to
great
sit
time.
down there for 2 hours, just about 6 or 7 of us, and just get to ask Mr. Lavelle just whatever, anything about his early days as a detective. He was, even to the end, he was a very sharp 99-year-old man. I mean,
Oh, he could remember anything that happened.
yeah, he was fun to talk to because he'd tell some funny stories about a lady getting stabbed in the booty and telling his young detective partner to look up her dress and see if he got stabbed. And the guy goes, "Well, I can't do that." He goes, "Well, you can't say that tomorrow." And I thought that was pretty funny and pretty
he had a great sense of humor. And I enjoyed the story where he told about a shootout with a guy and his gun maul were holed up in his apartment, and they were going to crash the door. And back in those days, they had the kind of a paneling on the doors.
Yeah.
And so the detective went up and kicked in the door, and his leg got caught in the door, and he fell to the ground, and the guy was firing the Tommy gun, and all the bullets went over him. And it was just fascinating. And he could recall, he was aboard USS Whitney, the name of the ship he was on at Pearl Harbor. It was out of port. That's why it wasn't bombed on December 7th, 1941, when it all happened in Pearl Harbor. And he could tell you exactly what he was doing that day aboard the USS Whitney. And I think he was the only officer that survived both Pearl Harbor and could tell us about the JFK thing.
Well, I remember the thing when he was 97 or 98 when I first met him, and I asked him. I said, "What do we know?" That was the time that Trump was going to release more of the paperwork, and he says, "What do we know?" He investigated the shooting for the Dallas County or for Dallas. And he said, "You know it all." He said, "There's no secrets." And, of course, there's people that have their conspiracy theories. And so I guess, last week it all died with him knowing if he knew anything else and never said it, I guess.
Well, he knew
never
everything
know.
that there was to know.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we want to thank Dave Saylor's Acadiana Cafe. That's located down off the Westover cutoff there when you go south on 410. The Acadiana Cafe, the best Cajun food this side of New Orleans, and I think maybe even better than New Orleans. He has everything. He has etouffee. He has catfish, shrimp. He gets his shrimp from Kaplan, Louisiana. There's a special shrimp farm in Kaplan where he can get the giant prawn, the giant shrimp, and boy, it is delicious. If you want something more exotic, you can even order alligator. I think he has some of that on the menu too. But Dave Saylor is a tall guy. He's white-haired. He meets just about every customer that comes in the Acadiana. If you remember where the Westover Theater is located, right there on 410, it's actually right before the Culebra exit. Dave Saylor, etouffee, boudin, no matter what it is delicious. You get the catfish platter. That's what I order when I go in there because you get catfish and you get some,
Where's he located? On this side of town or the other
410
side of town?
south, like you're going to Culebra.
Uh-huh.
If you're going to SeaWorld, you go right by it. Big building on the west side of the freeway. The Acadiana. It all began more than 35 years ago with Frenchy Guidry when they had a place over off Jackson Keller in 410 here on the north side. But also, Insure One. You're familiar with that company, aren't you?
I am familiar with that company, and we're having record sales, and people are coming to us and getting their insurance, and we're taking care of them, and we're with good, solid companies, and we're with Progressive and Safeco and Mercury and Foremost, and just with the slew of companies, we can get you, we can fit your budget however you want to make it happen. We do, and of course, this is hurricane season, Not I don't worry about it that much, but I do have some homes down on the coast, and then I actually have a couple of homes in North Carolina that I have insured, and so. But hurricane season is always a worrisome season for insurance agents, especially those of my friends that are down on the coastline. But so far, nothing's hit Texas. But
yeah, you got boat insurance too, though, right?
I got boat insurance. I got your wind and hail. I can do it all. I get a lot of calls on health insurance. I don't do a lot of health insurance. Health insurance is a different. Takes a different deal, but we do home and auto, and we can do commercial buildings or whatever. So
what's the number, John?
210-541-9771. And call Daniela. She'll fix you up, and we'll do whatever we can to help you.
Well, we know that for a fact because I've been with John now, golly, looking at his insurance agency. It's one of the best in South Texas, and John always answers the phone. That's what I like about it. And also Dave Saylor, you can always reach him down at the Acadiana. So, well, since we had such a historic time visiting with Jim Lavelle at his residence in Garland, it brought vivid memories back almost instantaneously. And Jim and I talk about him every time. He used to tease me a lot. He was a big teaser as well. And with his death this past week, there are no more detectives or officers left that were in the basement that day. They're all gone now. Part of history, and he was the last chapter. And Bob Jackson captured it so vividly and so well on that Sunday morning in 1963. And I happened to be there just by luck. I was told not to go because I was so tired from covering 2 days of assassination coverage with JFK and John Connally. But anyway, I went to that morning. In the basement. Let's listen to it.
There has been a continuing controversy surrounding the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. I'm Gary DeLaune. For those of us who were members of the Dallas media so many years ago, there was no controversy about the man who killed Lee Harvey Oswald, the accused presidential assassin. His name, Jack Leon Rubenstein. The following story and taped actualities are excerpts from events that occurred in Dallas. It's called Jack Ruby's 11th Hour. A chilled Sunday morning in November of 1963 was the second chapter in one of the most tragic chain of events in the 20th century. The shot rang out. The shot has rung out. And Lee Oswald falls. Lee Oswald has fallen. The shot has rung out here. Out of the world of oblivion stepped a short, pudgy character known for his local shenanigans, imprinting his name into the pages of history. Jack Leon Rubenstein, alias Jack Ruby, was the owner of a downtown Dallas strip joint called the Carousel Club. He suddenly lunged from a group of newsmen in a crowded police department basement, pointed a snub-nosed pistol at Lee Harvey Oswald, and pulled the trigger, thus dashing the last hope of finding a motive for the assassination of President Kennedy.
Those were the actual times that we all remember so vividly, and it was like yesterday in many ways, as I recall it. And I'll never forget my journey back to KLIF. I ran as fast as I could the 2 blocks back to KLIF and went on the air out of breath. And it was an historic time. And when I lived on Live Oak Street in Dallas, it was a very nice apartment house. And of course, we had a nice pool. And of course, on a hot afternoon, you go to the pool. Well, there were several young women around who did capture the attention of the young men's eyes, you know. There was one young woman in a bikini that I recall, not vividly, but I do recall her. Her name was Patricia Coase, and went by the name of Penny Dollar.
Penny Dollar?
Her stage name.
Oh, so she was an actress.
Yeah, she was, yeah.
Some sort of
exotic dancers for Jack Ruby, but Lavelle always teased me about that because we were, you know, she had asked me for my autograph one day, a big, you know, and so I gave it to her. I didn't know who she was. I just signed Gary DeLaune. She put it on her coffee table. And it was on her coffee, I guess, when the FBI agents came to talk to her. It was there. So, and I also want to say hello to, I think he may be watching in Dallas, Ferris Rookstool III, who's a friend of mine. He was an analyst for the FBI. And for 9 years, he studied the Warren Report. And anything that you want to know about the assassination, you either talk to Ferris Rookstool or Jim Lavelle. They can tell you everything. And there's no new conspiratorial theories out there now, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure in another 15, 20 years it'll be revived again. But everything that you ever wanted to know about the JFK assassination, it's already been published, printed, and talked about. So,
I don't know why he would have sit there and said, "John, you know everything." I mean, at 98, what are they going to do? Throw you in jail for the rest of your life if you say anything? So, I truly believe. I've never studied it or anything, but I believe that's the. I don't believe in the conspiracy theories. I believe what Mr. Lavelle said was, "Hey, we know it all."
We all know it all, and there were so many stories. There was a guy named William Penn who. Stan Penn, I can't remember his first name, but he ran the Midlothian newspaper, and he came out with this expose. One theory was the fact that there were so many cigarette butts below the grassy knoll. Well, that's where the train stopped. The brakeman got out and took a break, and they smoked their cigarettes there. But all kinds of theories and, plots were fabricated. And unfortunately, on this, I have an interview with Jim Lavelle, the last one I did 2 weeks ago yesterday, about a 7 or 8 minute interview, and Jim was his knowledgeable self again. And we also visited again for a few minutes with Mrs. Marie Tippett, the widow of J.D. And for those, what's ironic is you talk to young people today and they know very little about JFK or John Connally or the assassination, and it pains me because I really love history.
Well, Alyssa is good friends with John Connally's grandson. His grandson. I believe it's his grandson, maybe his great-grandson, but they went to school together here at Southwestern, and they're both artists.
Yes.
And so, Lindy, listen to his grandson, or great-grandson, whichever one it is. I met him one time. He's a good kid, but listen for that. Listen. We've told them about the Kennedy and stuff, but she actually knows a little history about it. So good.
I was a very close friend of Merrill Connally, who was a younger brother with John Connally, of course, and John would be in and out. I didn't know him nearly as well, but one of the most poignant interviews. Very touching, very emotional. The day he was released from Parkland Hospital, I sat this close to him at Parkland, where I'm sitting with you, and I had my recorder going, and John broke down that day because he said, "I want to thank the doctors and nurses and staff at Parkland Hospital for saving my life, because the bullet fragments had scattered when they entered his chest and his neck." And fact is, he died of basically a pulmonary disease because they couldn't get all the bullet fragments from the lungs. And I just loved Nellie Connally. She was a very lovely, sweet lady. And we talked a couple of times. I went to a funeral for John, and then a couple of other funerals. I knew Mary Connally, who was Merrill's wife. It was a very close time in those years. Newsmen had good relationships with the politicians, and we trusted them. They trusted us. No fabrication. I mean, what happened, and we didn't have to make it up.
Well, it happened. Nothing we can do about it. We can, we've learned from it. But you know what? It's a sad occasion in history. But Mr. Lavelle, you just rest in peace. I mean.
Yeah, and he will. One of the great detectives. He was the lead detective. Captain Will Fritz was the head of homicide, and back in those days, I'll give a little inside information. You went out every day on the scene. You know, like KLIF News in those days, we were the first on the scene. KLIF News, 1190 and out, and we covered everything in Dallas. If Dallas sneezed, everybody turned to KLIF to see what was going on. And so Will Fitz would say, "Come on, Gary, let's go in." And then we'll forget, I went with him in Casalinda area one day in Dallas, and there'd been a report of a murder and suicide. Well, it turned out to be a double murder and suicide. And so I got to the scene, and Will said, "Let's go, Gary. We're going in." So I go in with the lead detective on the story. That's how much trust they had in the news media in those days, and there were no conflicts at all. And Bob Jackson, of course, the tremendous photographer. Quick story about Bob Jackson. Not only did he win the Pulitzer, but he was in the motorcade. And as the motorcade serpentined its way down Elm and took its parade route down the Stemmons Expressway, just as they rounded the corner where the Sixth Floor Museum is located, he had taken a whole roll of film. So there was a courier from the Dallas Times-Herald, met him at the intersection, and he just tossed him the roll of film, said, "Here it is." And so as he turned the corner, he saw a barrel of a gun rifle coming out of the sixth floor. And it was the Oswald rifle. It was a 1998 special from Sears Roebuck.
Wow, 1998 special.
That's what he paid for it.
Oh, $19.98.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there thinking you're
He
saying
got
1998.
He got it from Sears
Your
Roebuck.
model.
Sears Roebuck. It had a scope on it.
Yeah.
It was a Carcana Kamlish, I believe, made by the Germans. And it was, he said, just as he looked up, he had no more film in his camera. He had just tossed the roll of film to his courier. So oh no. So he missed the gun coming out. And he said, then they heard the shots. And so it was just one of those horrible times in our history. It happened so many times, unfortunately, after that.
So what's happened on a positive note? Let's change the mood.
Football.
There we
Today,
go.
Clemson.
Football,
A&M,
Astros.
Texas.
Yeah, there you go.
LSU tonight.
Well, I'm into my Astros. I'm not watching any football, but I think the Astros are exciting.
We also have the U.S. Open.
Yeah, the U.S. Open.
Serena's going after another title.
Alyssa's going to the U.S. Open today.
20 years ago, she won it. And then, of course, Nadal is the favorite to win tomorrow in the men's division. And there's so much going on. Football. School is now in its third week for a lot of kids. And so a lot has happened. One thing that we want to talk about real quickly, hydration.
Yes.
These kids that need water. It was even very, very hot and steamy last night at Alamo Stadium. By the way, what a great job the residents of the San Antonio Independent Schools have done restoring and renovating that beautiful old rock yard, Alamo Stadium. It was the home of the greatest high school game in Texas history for the 20th century when Robert E. Lee, in 1963, a week after the assassination, defeated Breckinridge 55-48. Linus Baer scored all 48 points for Breckinridge. Warren McVeigh scored all 48 points for 47 points. 55-48 was the final. He scored all 48 points for Breckinridge. Linus Baer scored 47 for Lee.
Wow.
It was an unbelievable game. 26,000 fans packed old Alamo Stadium. It is one of the nicest high school stadiums in the state.
Those days, speaking of hydration, remember we drank out of the old rubber hose?
Oh, yeah.
The water tasted like rubber.
It did.
You know? Nowadays, it causes cancer and everything. It causes concussions to the kids.
Well, Brack was playing Lee last night, and one of the prominent graduates of Breckinridge High School, 1945, was Robert James Cade, who happened to be the founder of Gatorade.
Oh, really?
He went to the University of Florida. That's where it came from, the name Gator, Florida Gators.
Mr. I remember that. I knew that. I didn't know he's from here, though.
Yes, he went to Breckinridge High School.
Wow.
And, of course, Linus Baer. He went on to UT, recruited by Darrell Royal, but there have been so many tremendous stars go to Breckinridge, and they won the state. They won the state track title in '47. They won the state football title. I'm sorry, they won the track title in 42. They won their first football championship in 47, again in 62.
Wow.
And then
It's amazing you remember all that.
And then Lee won the state championship in 71. So they thought that they might have a chance to win that year, but I think they lost in the next round after Brackenridge. They lost to Corpus Christi.
Well, since we're talking about good people from San Antonio, Anthony Beverly, I've got to meet him through you. And his boy went fishing with me a few weeks ago. And man, we had a good time. Had a real good time out there. So
Anthony played for the John Jay Mustangs, a guy named Burr Henderson. And at that same time, there was a young man named Scott Ankrum, who was one of the fastest kids to ever run track, besides the Glosson brothers here in San Antonio. And he, of course, he went on to play at TCU and then signed with the Cowboys, broke his leg, and never was able to recover in the NFL career. But San Antonio is just jam-packed, as they say, with history. But let me just say one thing. We also have, the passing of Mayor Lila Cockrell and was honored. But we have another mayor who's making some asinine, ridiculous, stupid comments. He wants to end fracking now, and that's the former mayor, Castro.
Yeah.
He wants to stop fracking. We're going to die in the next 12 years because of global warming, and I'm scared to death, So I don't understand this man's thinking. And his twin, they published all the names, and I've seen prominent Democrats from across the country say, wrong idea.
Yeah. Yeah, they're Castro brothers are just bad. They're bad news. They're just not. The mom wants to tear down the Alamo. They want to move the cenotaph. They're just bad news for San Antonio. And,
that's not a good image.
No.
It reminds me of when I was a little kid. One of the worst maladies, you could ever think about was taking castor oil, and they remind me of castor oil.
Yeah.
Because you know what it does to your system.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is John Lester, everybody, and I'm Gary DeLaune, Blanquita. BQ, we hope you're feeling better. She had some surgery that she had to stay out today, but she'll be back next week. This is called, by the way, Lone Star Saturday.
So go, are we doing the subscribe button still on YouTube? Yeah. So go to YouTube, look it up, do the subscribe button. And like and hit a like there, and you'll help us out grow this subscription space. So we appreciate it.
Well, a lot has happened in our world. In 1940, on this date, London received its initial rain of bombs from Nazi Germany during World War II. That was the buzz bombs that came over, and you could hear them coming. And once the whistle stopped or the buzz, you didn't know where they were going to land. And I did a story in London about the Blitz, the Blitzkrieg they called it. And then in 1942, 2 years later, during World War II, the Russian army counterattacked the German troops outside the city of Stalingrad. And the Battle of Stalingrad was really instrumental. And the national, I think I mentioned this, the Professional Football Hall of Fame was dedicated at Canton, Ohio on this date in 1963. And hey, this is something. 1971, the Beverly Hillbillies was seen for the final time on CBS TV. You remember who the stars were in that, don't you? Buddy Ebsen, and then Buddy Bear.
I don't know the granny's name.
Granny Clampett. That was her name on this.
Granny Clampett, yeah.
And also,
what we did with Kelly here when Kelly was home during the holidays last year. I said, Kelly, do you know anything about Petticoat Junction? No. So we looked it up. Lindy and I looked it up on Netflix, I think it was, and then and also the Beverly Hillbillies. Kelly and so she started watching the whole series of Beverly Hillbillies. Back in those days. And she never heard of it, but she liked it. It was fun.
I'm not really a great fan of ESPN. I realize they do carry a lot of sports, but it was on this date in 1979 that ESPN, the Entertainment and Sports Programming Network, made its debut on cable TV.
Yeah.
And, of course, the only guy I can really remember is Chris Berman.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and there are several others that have made it what it is. But also in Ireland, and this is such an important vote for the Emerald Isle. In 1983, in Ireland, voters approved a constitutional amendment that banned abortion. I wish we had the same thing in this country.
Yeah.
But we don't. And then, of course, in 1986, Desmond Tutu was the first black to be installed to lead the Anglican Church in Southern Africa. And Mugabe just passed away. He was also from that
He was
part of the world.
95 or 97,
Yeah, and we have so many historic facts about people around the world, San Antonio. And I'm not saying this to be critical or anything else, but I got a note here about a month ago, and they asked me to join the American Legion, which is a great veterans
That's right.
organization. I missed the cutoff date by a few weeks or whatever. Well, this year President Trump added those limitations that you can still join the American Legion. So I'm going to be speaking tomorrow out in Leon Valley at the American Legion meeting. Walt Garrity, who used to be a fine tennis player, had a tennis shop, and he is the local president. I'm going to go out and speak, but he had lost my number, and so he thought, well, somebody at Channel 5 will have it. So he called the assignments desk at Channel 5 this week and said, I need to find Gary DeLaune's number. I've lost it. And he said, who's that? And
Who is Gary DeLaune?
He was there about almost 30 years. Said,
This-
we never heard of him.
This is Gary DeLaune.
If you never heard of
didn't
him,
know.
you're probably well off.
Yeah.
But they didn't know who I was, that I'd ever worked there. They didn't know who Dan Cook was. Now, these were the current
Yeah.
employees of the assignments
Yeah.
desk. That's the way we have gone in Journalism 101. So, and I want to thank all of you guys for being with us today. Rob Hicks has come in from Lavernia.
Thanks,
He's
Rob.
running for mayor out of Lavernia now.
Oh, he is? Cool.
Yeah, he's
Cool.
got a chance
Not
to
yet.
win.
Not yet.
He's going to run over there, and he's going to pattern all of his governmental decisions after the Castro twins.
There. Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
That's scary.
yeah, it is scary.
Yeah. Here's a thought I want to leave you with, whether you're liberal or Republican or Democrat or whatever. What's more important, the people coming over, open borders, people coming over, or the birth of a baby? What's more important to you? Ponder that one. That's kind of my thing when I go to people that are for abortion and or for open borders. So, I think what's more important?
Well, that was called Roe versus Wade.
Yeah.
And I knew Henry Wade very well. He was a district attorney of Dallas County. And Henry was a tremendous lawyer, tremendous district attorney. And it was one of those tragic times in American history when that decision was ever made. But there's so many wonderful things that we do like to remember, and there are a lot of positive things we want to talk about. And of course, World Series is coming up not too much longer.
Yeah, my Astros are going to be in it.
Yeah.
I'm going to. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Best baseball team: Dodgers, Yankees, and Astros.
Astros are the top three.
Yep, and so it's going to be very
And the
interesting.
Yankees have won all the games there, and the Astros have won all the Yankee games here. So home field advantage will be interesting if those two get in the playoffs together. So.
It's going to be very interesting. The playoffs, a great time of year because football is at its peak, and the $90 million that Jerry Jones gave to Ezekiel.
Yeah.
I think that is absolutely ridiculous, and it's to the point where a contract doesn't mean a thing. Doesn't mean a thing anymore. When I was covering sports in Dallas and the Cowboys, I had an opportunity to break a story. One of the members of the organization called me. I had a good tie, and he said, I want you to know that Tom Landry and Clint Merksen just have agreed to a 10-year contract for Tom Landry to take the team another 10 years. Well, he never signed a contract. It was with a handshake.
Yeah.
He never broke the pact because he had given his word today it doesn't mean a thing.
The thing, yeah, but you and I both, I don't know if we agree on this, but I'll bring it up. We're for free enterprise. And if someone's willing to pay Ezekiel Elliott $90 million to run a football, see, I say hop on your happy horse and go get it done. Mm-hmm. You know, although we sit there and go, wow, it's a lot of money, it's too much money, blah, blah, blah. We don't want, it's kind of like guns. I don't need an AK-47, not going to buy one. So I wouldn't oppose a ban on them. But on the other hand, I oppose a ban because you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. And next thing you know, we lose all our gun rights. And same with this. I don't want to knock someone's freedom to be able to make all the money they can make because Jerry Jones stupid enough to pay it. You know, that's part where. But I'm for Elliott. If he can get $90 million, or LeBron James get $20 million to put a ball in the hoop, hey, that's what the beauty behind America is.
It shows the need for greed. I guess that's because that's what they got. But I think it's ridiculous they pay that kind of salary, and of course, if you can get it, take it.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I mean, you know, if someone's willing, stupid enough to give it to you, take it. But
the controversy will continue as we get ready now for 2020 next year. And there was another story that came out. I heard this morning. This woman, I'm not sure of the personality. She was well known. She said, "No longer should you wear a red cap because that indicates you're for Trump." So,
yeah, I heard that.
So that means that you can't wear a Boston Red Sox cap, you can't wear an Oklahoma cap, which I have 2 or 3 of them, Cincinnati Reds, pardon me, you can't wear a Kansas City Chiefs cap. So it is insane. The dissidence, the vitriol, it's all as insane as paying $90 million to Ezekiel Elliott. Well, and we want to tell you in closing that we have our big sign says Lester and Tier 1.
So call me up. Let me fix your insurance up. I got girls standing by to help you out.
Yes, and you can call John in person.
Yeah, when I'm fishing on the bay, you call my mobile number through my 541 number. I answer the phone even if the fish is on the hook and I'm reeling them in, I'm going to put it down, take your call, get you fixed up.
Wasn't that Otis Redding did a song about that? Fishing in the bay or something like that.
Fishing in the dock of the bay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, don't forget, Acadiana Cafe, that's Dave Saylor. And Saylor is really an appropriate name because he sells fish food. And he has the best this side of New Orleans. And heck, it may be the best in the country. I like it. And it's catfish, my favorite, the catfish platter, because you get a couple pieces of shrimp, you get a big fillet of catfish. And it's located on 410 South, Southwest. You go like you're going to go to SeaWorld. You go to the exit says Culebra. It's right at the Westover Shopping Center area. You get off there and go in and you see the big guy with white hair. That's Dave Saylor. Boy, it's a tremendous place. And right there on 410, go in there and settle all your appetite for great fish.
Good. We'll have to do it.
And we want to invite you back next week. I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about and, expand upon, no doubt. And you can agree or disagree, but it's always going to be interesting on Lone Star Saturday. Big Q will be back next week. Thanks, John Lester, for sitting in. Thanks to Rob Hicks for, again, coming in all the way from Lavernia. We want to wish you a great weekend and a lot of football going. By the way, Boomer Sooner, they're playing at Powerhouse, South Dakota today. You say, why are they playing South Dakota? Because the Division I team that had scheduled them on the schedule backed out. Just before they signed it. Oh, we're going to look at it. We don't want to play. So they had to sign another team, so South Dakota.
And the other thing I want to leave you with is, I don't know anything about the Clintons. I just saying. I want to make sure everybody knows. I don't know anything about the Clintons.
And let me tell you right now, I never took a fight on the Lolita flight. We'll see you next week on Lone Star Saturday. I'm Gary DeLaune, along with John Lester. Have a great weekend.